Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dorian Show. Today I have a special guest with me. He's an owner of two bars in San Francisco, Emperor Norton's Boozeland and Bender's. Give it up for Kevin DeMattia.
Let's let that deafening applause subside for a second. All right. How's it going, Dorian? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's not every day I get to meet someone that owns a business in the heart of San Francisco, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Owning a business is it's not for everybody, man. And I fell into it. I never wanted to own a business, and it just I fell into the industry that I fell in love with, and then me just working in that industry long enough, I just eventually became an owner.
Oh, okay.
You know, I was a bar back. I didn't get any money or anything.
Yeah. When did you get started in this?
Boy, 1990. I moved to San Francisco in 1997, and I was working selling eyewear downtown on Kearny Street, which is kind of funny because I didn't need glasses till like 2 years ago, which is kind of funny. And it's a funny story. I was just selling eyewear. This guy Robert Nunez came in. He managed a nightclub called Big Heart City. And he saw the way that I worked, and he's like, "Man, you got to come into the bar world. You'll do really good in the bar world."
Okay.
And he's like, "But I need somebody this weekend." I said, "I can't do it, man. I'm here. I can't just leave these guys in the lurch like that."
Yeah.
He went away. He came back the next weekend. He said, "Dude, I'm telling you, you need to come work for me. You'll make a lot of money. You're gonna love the bar industry. I could just see you thriving in there." And I still couldn't do it. The third time he came in, then there's something about the way he spoke to me, and he was like. I was like, I'll give it a try because I wasn't happy there. There was like a glass ceiling. I didn't want to own my own eyewear place. It was just a job, you know. I have no college degree, nothing.
Okay.
So I just went down to interview, or I went down, to check the place out, and there's this cavernous nightclub, like a 1,400 person nightclub, and I was the only bar back for these guys.
Oh wow.
So he kind of gave me a super quick rundown of what the job entailed. I was like, okay.
And what's that, like cutting lemons and stuff for bar back?
So talk about hard work. I would show up at 4 p.m. and the bar wouldn't open until 9 p.m. And I worked the entire time. It was crazy. So I'd have to get in. I'd turn on the lights. I'd turn on the sound system. I'd be cutting fruit for an hour. So we had like sometimes up to 7, sometimes 8 bartenders there that were working, and I was the only bar back. So I had to set up fill the ice, all the fruit, the straws, the napkins, the liquor and stuff. But and we were like, there wasn't even glassware. It was all plastic. It was that high volume nightclub environment.
Yeah.
So when it would get going, the place was packed, and there was like the ice machine was across the building in the kitchen. So I'd have to get like this giant bus tub and fill it up with ice and coal from that, get the ice from that during the course of the evening. And I'd get one break at 9 o'clock from 9 to, it was like, I had like 10 minutes. So I'd race down the alley to this Mexican place and get a burrito. And I'd wolf my burrito down and then right back to work. Right. And then I'd finally be done at 4 in the morning. So it was 12-hour shifts. Because at 2 a.m. we'd stop serving alcohol, and then but the club would keep going, and they'd sell like Red Bull, water, and juices and stuff.
Oh wow, so, I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah, but I loved it because I was making. I'd get like $300 a night. I only got $5 an hour cash, but I'd make $300 a night back in 1998 or 99.
That's a lot.
That was a lot of money for me, And I'd only work 2 or 3 days a week.
Right.
And then, as anyone will tell you, in the bar industry, once you work at a place and you're good at your job, other people will try to poach you, or they want you to work for them. Like bartenders will tell you this all the time. If they're working for a place, somebody else wants them, then all bartenders, you'll talk to them. They all wind up working for 2, 3, 4 different bars, But that was my main gig, was Big Heart City. It was on Mission between 4th and 5th. It's now a movie theater. They knocked it down years ago.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy that someone would just poached you from selling glasses.
Yeah, and I was still friends with the glassware people and all that, but it was the best decision I ever made because I took to it like a duck to water. I came in and I wasn't about getting laid. I wasn't there to hit on women. I would drink. I was drinking a lot, having fun. I wasn't doing drugs back then. I just worked really hard. I would sweat the whole time. I'd run around with a flashlight in my teeth because it was like really dark, and I'm down there on my hands and knees stocking beer.
Yeah.
And I was so good that the bartenders wouldn't even, if I saw the liquor bottle was getting even close to the bottom, I'd give them a brand new bottle. And I had this little tiny liquor room that was almost the size, it's like 2 phone booths together. It was tiny, and all the liquor was in this little tiny room. And then at the end of the night, I'd marry the liquor and all that. But I was so good at what I did that enabled those guys to serve more drinks. They never ran out of anything, so they could just serve high volume bartending. So they made a shit ton of money.
Right.
And that's why I got tipped out well, because I took over for 2 people. Wow. I did their job.
Yeah.
And the boss complained because he said, dude, you're here for too long. The other guy wouldn't get here till like 8 p.m. You're here at 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But I liked getting there early. When I showed up, I had a notebook, and I drew a schematic of the entire bar, where all the liquor was, the registers, the liquor room, the ice machine. So before I even worked a minute, I knew that layout probably better than people that had worked there for years, because I studied the layout.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to fail.
Yeah.
But I had a natural aptitude for just being a barback. I just like being quiet and working really hard. Barback is different because you're there to facilitate the interaction between the bartender and the customer. Mm-hmm. You're not there to flirt, to talk, and all that. So I love that. It was a complete state of zen. I'd be dripping sweat, sprinting around, but in my mind, it was just, there's chaos around me, but it was this beautiful, peaceful quiet. I just loved it. I was working so hard, and I was so focused. Like, everything was a blur around me. I didn't notice people or things. I just worked.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But that's a young man's game. I was I was only like 20. I wasn't even 30 yet when that happened. And, you can't do physical stuff like that forever, But it was grueling, 12 hours every night.
Did they move you up to bartender at some point?
They did eventually. That's the problem with me was I was so good at being a barback, no one ever wanted to make me a bartender because I was so good at what I did.
Right.
And then I became a bartender, and I enjoyed it for a while. But with a bartender, you're like a captive audience, like a cab drivers and priests. You're like stuck behind this partition, and people just talk at you, unloading all their problems on you. So I enjoyed barbacking much more than bartending, weirdly enough. I enjoy this, like one-on-one conversations I like.
Yeah.
I don't like being on stage in front of 50 people, and they're all staring at you begging for drinks.
Yeah.
And I worked at the highest volume place. I worked at the Zeitgeist for years as a head bartender, where it's 4 deep, and you're like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And if somebody even went like, I'd be like, next, what do you want? There was no time for what beers you have on draft. You're like, there's the list. It's you have to be kind of curt and like rude,
right?
Because again, it's like efficiency and volume.
What are the most common drinks outside of beer in terms of like mixed drinks? Do people just order, like, in your experience, do people like order the same 10 drinks?
It's weird. You can always tell a young drinker when they're like, what's your specialty? Like, what do you like to make? When they have that lilting tone in their voice, I'm like, oh my God, fuck off. Because they just, like seasoned drinkers, people that drink, they know what they want. It's usually a shot and a beer, or they have a cocktail or something. They have their go-to that they, through years of trial and error, they found out like their perfect mixture of what they like to drink. So they just know what they want. They have their money ready. I'm like, you're awesome. So people that like, they don't have their money ready. They don't know what they want. But as far as drinks, it's just like, it's always changing. Like now there's a drink called like The Last Word that's popular. Like in the 70s, it was like the Harvey Wallbangers. It's like, it just infiltrates popular culture. There'll be a couple drinks that they get popular, and they're popular for a couple of years, and they fade away. Then a whole new crop.
Yeah, like the old fashioned, right? Because of Mad Men.
Like the old fashioned, came back, and that's still huge. People drink old fashions all the time. They never used to order those back in the day, and then it just like exploded. But the most popular drinks, it's like margaritas, on the weekend days, like Bloody Marys during the day. A lot of people like margaritas, We're not craft cocktail bars. We're kind of like dive bars, Boozeland and Benders, so we don't get a lot of the fancy stuff, but we can still, our bartenders are trained to make all that stuff, because at the end of the day, it's like, you have to do what the customer wants. It is a customer service based industry.
Right. But those are like the hardest drinks to make, right? Margaritas.
Margaritas aren't that difficult. I've made thousands of them.
Unless you need to like blend them, right, to make a
margaritas are you have to like salt the rim, so there's all these steps to it. You have to like salt the rim. It's just kind of a little bit labor intensive. I like the drink where it's just like a liquor and a mixer, like a vodka cran, gin and soda, soda, vodka Red Bull, just simple, clean. I just like those better. I'm not a craft cocktail kind of guy, but there are places like that, like what's that place, there's like Zombie Village, Trick Dog, are these amazing places where if you're a real Epicurean, because some people, I'm a drunk. I'm there to drink. My friends are you just want to drink. Right. I really don't care what the taste is like. I drank Fernet, which is horrific. We call it wet dirt. It tastes like wet dirt, So I drink Fernet and a cheap lager. I don't care if it's a Budweiser bottle, a can of beer, Modelo. I just like a light, clean lager. I don't like all the heavy IPAs and all that. But that's myself. But a lot of people, especially in San Francisco, people are really tuned into like fashion and culture. And especially when it comes to food and drinks, they want something really precious and Epicurean. So that's why Trick Dog is like going off all the time, because people want to go there because you're going to get this amazing cocktail with a bazillion ingredients in it.
Yeah.
Made by a beautiful person that's dressed very fashionably.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Okay.
But
that's funny.
But that's great. You know,
actually,
there's room for them, and then there's room for us, the 5-star dive bars that are like.
Yeah. I do notice like there's not a lot of places that hold like Bud Lights anymore on tap in San Francisco. Like there's fewer bars that
you
do
know
that.
you're in a dive bar if they have Bud Light. We put Modelo on draft here,
Yeah.
which is like just a super light, cheap, clean Mexican lager, and it's our most popular beer on draft because we're in the Tenderloin, so people want like more bang for your buck.
Okay.
You know, it like outsells our Pliny the Elder, which is like a really great beer. I'm so happy to have that. But it's funny, the Modelo, the cheap shitty beer, is outselling the craftiest beer that we have.
Yeah, the Pliny beers are like the hipsters. That's what they come in and drink, right?
Yeah, I guess, or the beer snobs, the true beer Epicureans, the ones that are like that follow. There's like a website called Untapped where you try a beer and you log on and you rate the beer, and it's folks like that are real beer snobs that go for that craft beer. Yeah,
that's funny. When did you start getting into the owning business of this bar?
I was 40 years
Bender's?
old when I became an owner at Bender's Bar and Grill. I was at the Tidal Wave Metal Fest. This is 2005. It was out in McLaren Park. It was they don't do it anymore, but it's an old metal. It's the Jerry Garcia Amphitheater. They have all these metal bands would play. And I met this guy. His name's Makeout Mike, and I met him that day, and we just hit it off. We were both into track bikes, fixed gear bikes, bike culture.
Nice.
And he was like, "You got to come check out this bar, Bender's. I think you'll love this bar." And when I saw Bender's, I walked in. I was like, "Oh my God, this is like I'm home. This is the bar that I always wanted to work at." Because that big nightclub, I worked for there. I worked for other bars all around the city, but it was like I never felt anything in common with the customers. It was either like rich techies or just the weird bridge and tunnel people that came from out of town to party at night.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was my people. And then I walked into Bender's and I was like, oh, this is why I moved to San Francisco, because people have heart and soul here. It was like bike messengers and artists and poets and writers and graffiti artists and punk rock people and metalheads, and it was people with dreadlocks and piercings and like the outcasts, the refused, the people on the periphery of society would all go there. I was like, this place is amazing. So I told the owner that I wanted to work there, so they gave me some door shifts. And then I loved the place so much that every time they offered me a shift, I would just say yes. Even if I was working another job, I'd figure that out. I'd get my shift covered. I'd get somebody to cover, but I worked every time they asked me, I said yes. So then I went from door to bar back to bartender to bar manager to owner within 7, 8, 9, within 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. So you owned that bar before this one?
I did. Yeah. We owned Bender's first. And then a couple years later, like 2 or 3 years later, we found the space in the Tenderloin. And I've lived in the Tenderloin for 22 years. I'm a veteran of this neighborhood. Wow. And when the space came up in this neighborhood, I was like, oh my God, my neighborhood. I love it. And when we saw this space, I fell in love all over again. I was like, the actual physical space of Emperor Norton's Boozeland, 510 Larkin. We're just another in a long line of people that have rented out this space and made it their own domain, you know. But when I saw the layout of 510 Larkin, I was like, whoa, Art Deco, original. This is 1944. This place is amazing and a great spot. It's got a back patio. I was like, oh my God. And it was just like meeting the love of your life, if I could describe it like that, you know.
How much does if someone, I mean, I know you did this a while ago, 2006 was your first bar. How much does it cost to even buy a bar?
Oh man! Well, liquor licenses back then, they were going for $300,000+ each. Now, since the pandemic, they've plummeted, kind of like the taxi cab medallions, which are now not even worth the paper they're printed on. Now, liquor licenses are down like $120,000. But if you go to like Bumblefuck, Alabama, or other places, liquor licenses are thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But then when you get in the major metropolitan areas, New York, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, then the liquor license, the price goes to the roof. But we had 5 owners, so we all pooled in, we bought it. And then you have to rent out the space. Then we had to gut this place and redo it because it was like years of neglect.
Yeah.
So we had to rip walls down, and we had a whole vision for how the bar would be laid out to be user friendly, you know, handicap friendly. the whole 9 yards. So it's a lot. It's a lot. You know, some bars are turnkey. Like you buy them, you just walk in and start
It's
making
ready.
money.
Yeah.
You know,
Is it? So how hard is it to get a liquor license? Because I don't know. I've heard when I was young, they say like the city stopped giving them out. You have to buy. From
they stopped making this. So there's a finite amount of liquor licenses. So it's like,
So you buy it from the last owner.
yeah,
of the
you
bar.
get it from the last owner, and it's not that hard to find one. But then it depends on how much they sell them for. You know,
Yeah.
If it's a really great space or they have a lot of inventory or stock, they can sell them for a lot more.
Okay.
You know.
But you think right now you could get one for like 100,000, about 150?
That's what I've heard. You know, that's what. Yeah, that's what
Here's
I've
your
heard.
chance, guys.
Yeah,
I thought they were like millions of dollars.
yeah. No,
But I mean, that's why it's good to talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, but it fluctuates. You know, because now we're currently in like a state of crisis, like the recession and like. With the pandemic and stuff, and people aren't drinking as much, so we took a huge hit. I lost my life savings. The bar lost all of our savings. We had to get loans from the government. It's been a nightmare. You know, so many places have closed, especially restaurants are really hard. So, yeah, we lost so much money. You know, just being closed for a couple, it feels like forever that we were closed. And then all the restrictions that came where we had to I had to cover the front with like wood so people wouldn't smash the windows because it was like utter lawlessness in the streets when the pandemic came. It was just like the ne'er-do-wells took over the streets. So, and then we came back, then we had to like put the plastic barriers up and all get, you know, wear masks, and we had to serve food at one point. It was a fucking nightmare. We had to build the parklets so people would, because everyone was so scared to be inside, so everyone wanted to be outside. And our saving grace was our back patio, so people would go out there and drink. But the pandemic changed everything. The pandemic dropped the price of liquor licenses. All these places have gone out of business, and it's changed. In a lot of ways, it's changed the culture of drinking. Like people nowadays, they want to just Netflix and chill at home. And they've learned through the pandemic from staying home, like, fuck it, we're just going to go to the liquor store and get a bottle of booze and our mixers and some beer.
Right.
And or have our weed delivered to our doorstep and just sit at home and save all this money and drink at home.
Yeah, but a lot of the bars, it's the interaction with other people, though. They can't get that at home, you know?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, again, what's happened is the social media, being the prevalence of social media now, and I'm guilty of this too, where when you used to have to go out and you'd meet up with your friends for a drink and you'd connect after work, etc. Now everyone is, you can find your friends on Facebook or Instagram and keep up with them. So people meet up a lot less in face. They're so used to looking at their phone and their screen.
Yeah.
So,
how do you think has your business picked up?
it's picking up, but it's been like watching grass grow, watching paint dry. It's really slow because
Still not as good as pre-pandemic.
drinking culture's changed. Old diehard drunks like me, they seem to be like a thing of the past. Where I've always said this: when you go out with like 5 of your buddies, we used to go out. Granted, we're all in the bar industry. We'd all walk into a bar. We'd get around to 5 shots, 5 beers. You tip well. You bust your glassware back to the bartender. You don't let it sit at your table. You know, now I'll see like 5 folks come up and it's like only 3 are drinking and then 2 want water or they want some weird like non-alcoholic thing. So people are healthier nowadays. That's changed the culture too. People just aren't, they just don't drink as much, it seems.
Okay. So it hasn't, we're not even close to pre-pandemic level, you think?
No, we are not in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin's been really hard hit. Other places are doing great in the city. Like
Bender's is okay?
Bender's is okay because it's a 20-year legacy business. Plus, you know, for years of doing bands and fundraisers, we were a real pillar of the community. So we had music. So it was a real gathering hub for everybody. We'd have like the Orphans Thanksgiving. We were open 365 days a year. You know, we catered to so many different communities, like the bicycle community, the music community, the art community, doing the art shows and all that. So then all those folks have kind of come back and shown Bender's a lot of love. So Bender's is a lot busier. But the Tenderloin has just been devastated. Everyone left. All the tech companies that were nearby to my Market Street, like Twitter and Dolby, and now Uber and Lyft, they're doing all these massive layoffs. So it's like everyone's getting clear cut. They're cutting the tech workers. People moved out of the city, out of the Tenderloin in droves. And if you've seen the street scene out here, it's very off-putting. I've heard of people coming in, they want to move to the TL because it's like artistic and cool. And they come in and they see just roving gangs of drug dealers and all the addicts and they're like, fuck that. I'm not going to live here. So they'll move in. They'll move to other neighborhoods. So yeah, it's different out here.
In terms of like alcohols, is this true that you guys pay a higher price for alcohol from the distributor than what we could get at Costco, or is that a myth?
That's a good question. I don't even know. It's a
Because I've always heard like you can't like just buy like let's say vodka from Costco and just refill your bottles.
Yeah, I actually do believe it's cheaper to buy at like Costco or Bevmo and stuff than it would be to buy from the distributors. Yeah, I
Right.
think we do pay a little bit more.
Yeah,
and some
yeah.
bars do that. That's how the Brown Jug got put out of business because they were so loose. Like the bartender was selling Coke over the bar, and and a homeless person would come in with like a bottle of booze, and just the bartender would just give them $5 for it and take it, and then they'd serve that as their well. You know, it's kind of wild. It's a total like bargain economy.
Yeah.
You know, but then the ABC, found out and they got shut down pretty quickly. You know?
Oh wow. Yeah, that's crazy. How do you plan for? Are you always worried about? I mean, alcohol lasts a little bit longer than food, but are you always worried about like things expiring, or you're not able to sell something?
Yeah, well, the reps take care of that. They come by and they'll check the bottles and they'll find the expiration dates on it. We rotate our stock and stuff, but sometimes you miss stuff. But the reps, they send in people because they don't want you to sell an old beer
Right.
that would taste funky. They want people to want to order their products. They make sure it's all rotated, and that's the great thing about owning a bar, which I love. Like so different than owning a restaurant or a kitchen is like the food expiring. You have to label all those containers, and they expire in 2 days or a week or a month or whatever. Booze, it could sit there for 100 years, and it's pretty much good to go.
Right.
It's in a dark room on these shelves and it could just last forever. Beer expires, obviously the kegs and stuff, but we just go through that. You always
Pretty
cycle through it,
quickly.
but yeah.
Okay. What do you think is the best? Because you got two. Like, what do you think is the best way to bring people in, customers, in terms of what have you seen? What have you seen that worked?
Boy, I'm not very good at it. I'll tell you that much. I'm not really good at marketing.
Yeah.
What you should do, what I should be doing is posting on Instagram every day, posting on Facebook, keeping yourself relevant in customers' minds. We used to advertise in the SF Weekly.
Okay.
What we do, what I do is just offer a quality service to people. So we have some of the cheapest prices in town. Okay. We have quality products. Our crew is really nice to people. We've got a great space that I keep clean and neat. We do rotating art that brings folks in. All those things I do, just hoping that once people are here, they're like, wow, this place is great, and I'm going to keep coming back if I'm ever in the neighborhood.
Right.
But that being said, the newer generations, like I said, it's not really a drinking culture anymore. So now more and more people are doing trivia nights and karaoke and having DJs and movie nights and all these and these shows and stuff just to lure people in. And bars that have that do really well, like the Knockout or the Parkside, the Knockout, stuff like that. The ones that have like live music and karaoke and stuff, it gives people, they want to go and do something. It used to be like I'd go out and do stuff and see shows, but I just wanted to go to a bar and hang out with my friends and drink, But it seems like you have to lure people in by giving them things to do. So on that end, we're starting to have DJs here once a month. We're gonna have DJs in here. Just hopefully that'll bring some people in because DJs have a big, crowd that they bring with them. So hopefully that'll. And I love music, and I like the fact that DJs come in, they curate. That they're usually, whoever the DJ is, they are truly in love with whatever music they're spinning, be it R&B, hip hop, punk, or whatever, soul.
Right.
They'll give you the real good stuff and expose people, myself, to new music. So, yeah.
Do you think food helps bars?
Yes.
Vendors.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. People go there because the people just come here to drink. We're more like a public house, like a meeting space.
Right.
People come here to have meetings after work, hang out and stuff like that. But when you have food, people might not necessarily want to drink, but people always got to eat. So yeah, it's always good to have. That's why Bender's does so well, because we have a great kitchen.
Yeah.
The guys that ran Cat's Head Barbecue, they opened up a new space at Bender's.
Oh wow.
And their food is absolutely amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Overkill Grill. Yeah.
Is that something you're thinking about doing here, or you guys?
We can't. We don't have a food. We don't have a kitchen. We don't have any of that. So it's not something I'd be interested in. I wouldn't. Like I said before, with the food and storage and all that, I just don't want to get into that whole ball of wax. I just like running a bar. Just a plain. People can bring food in all day long. I'm like, bring pizza, bring food. I don't care. Stink up the place with your Chinese food or whatever you got. Whatever you got. I don't. Come in here and eat. I'm fine with that.
I mean, this is a super cool bar. I feel like more people need to come out because you guys do have that really cool balcony outside.
Yeah, our saving grace is our patio, our smoking patio. We're doggy friendly, which you're technically not supposed to have dogs in bars.
Really? I thought it's just a
Because like back in the day, it was like you couldn't go to a bar without running into a couple dogs. There'd be dogs running all over the place. But now they consider the fruit and the cherries and olives, that's like considered food. So you can't have an animal unless it's a service animal in a bar, you know.
I feel like in San Francisco, I see dogs in every establishment.
Yeah, so I think it's like a don't ask, don't tell. Like, you know, if the
yeah.
ABC comes in, you know, you just say, oh, that's just our regular. They're leaving in a few minutes and all that.
Yeah.
Because we put on our placard out front, we had an A-frame out front that advertises, and I had the sign painter paint dog friendly on the bottom.
Right.
And a woman from the city came by. I literally put the brand new sign out, and she walked up. I literally, it was like 30 seconds. I set the sign up, and I was wiping it down with like a rag. And she goes, oh, no, you can't. No, you can't say dog friendly.
And that's for your patio.
And that's when I found out. When she's like, no, because you guys, it's the fruit and olives and cherries. That's considered food.
Oh,
so it's considered like we're serving food. So you can't have animals in your establishment. I'm like, okay. So we had to like black that out so it doesn't say dog friendly on the bottom anymore.
Yikes.
Yeah, kind of crazy. It used to be more freewheeling. The bars back in the day, it was just wild. You know, people doing drugs on picnic tables outside. Not here, but like other bars. It was just more wild and lawless back in the day. It felt like you could get away with stuff. Nowadays it feels like everything's so micromanaged, and there's so many organizations and government departments, the health department and the ABC and all these just rules and bylaws. And
what's ABC?
The alcohol beverage control. They're the ones that, you know, but like for the parklet, for instance, you had a parklet out front during the pandemic. They said you need to have a space for people to have fresh air while they drink. So okay, we did it, but then they're like, oh no, it can't be this tall, it can't be this long, it can't be this short, it has to provide this much airflow, you can't use this materials, you can't run an extension cord over the sidewalk to plug stuff in, so we had to buy like a battery pack for our lights.
Right. Okay.
But then nothing's set in stone, and then like a few months later they changed all the rules, and they're like, well, yeah, you absolutely can put an extension cord over the street. And so it's always shifting and changing, and
they're not taking it away, right? Is that going to stay for a while because you still have
they're not taking it away, but there's so much bureaucracy around them. So what happened was, when all these parklets came in, the city lost $1 gazillion in the parking fees and stuff like that. So they're making up for that revenue by, you know, by fining people that have parklets that aren't adhering to the rules. So starting in March of 2023, the city's going to start coming around to all these parklets and being like, okay, that's wrong. You have to change this. You have to change this, or you have to get rid of it. And they're going to start charging us for them too. Yeah. So we're going to pay for the privilege to have it.
No one pays for the meters in the Tenderloin anyways. I feel
that's funny. But you will get ticketed out here. I promise you that.
If so, for anyone that wants to like own or start a bar, like what are the top tips you think you could give someone that wants to get into this business?
First of all, have a love for it. This sounds like this is so cliche to say, but you better love what you do, because there's not. The only way you're going to make money in the bar industry is if you own the building and you don't have to worry about rent. Like, make real money, you know. And if you're like one or two owners, when you start getting into 3, 4, 5, 6 owners, or you have a whole bunch of investors that give you money, then you're at their beck and call.
Right.
Any aesthetic changes you want to make, any kind of stuff you want to do, you have to run it by this whole cadre of people that might not agree with you. So I'd say go in with just a few. The less people, the better going into business.
Yeah.
You better have a love for it, which I have a love for it. I don't even drink anymore. I stopped drinking like 8 or 9 years ago. Wow. I don't drink or do drugs at all, but I still absolutely love what I do. I'm surrounded by alcohol. I have no desire to drink it. I love running a business and running a space where people can come in and they're like, whoa, I'll just talk at you if you walk in the door. I'm like, have you seen this picture? Look how cool this molding is. Right. Look at my cool sign in the patio. Look at this. Look at that. I'm so proud of this space. I'm so excited to be here, that I love being here. Even when I'm scrubbing blood and diarrhea out of toilets sometimes. It's the grunt work. But I would say have a love for it, and running a business is very difficult. So the bottom line is you need to love what you do. Okay. And I don't make a lot of money doing this, but I love what I do, so I count myself blessed, you know.
And you would say definitely they should have a background in the industry, like know at least how to bartend and bar back and all that.
That helps. Yeah, if you come in cold, you're in for like a rude awakening on a lot of levels. I was lucky because I came up from the grunt. Like I learned how to wash the glasses and change the beer kegs and change the soda, the CO2, and then working my way up the ladder. And now years and years and years later, now I know about the bureaucracy and paying things and just a million and one things that you learn. You become like a novice, like electrician and a plumber. You just learn so much about a space when you're in charge of it. You know, it's not the kind of job where you can go home and just leave the job at the job. When you own your own business, it follows you home. You think about it the first thing you wake up. You think about it before you go to sleep. You dream about it. You know, that's it. It just takes a love for what you do and hard work, and be honest. Don't be disingenuous. I tell people, like, don't. There were bars just years ago in the TL, like you said, they'd just buy shitty booze at Costco and put it in like a Kettle One bottle. So somebody thinks they're drinking Kettle One, but they're drinking like rock cut vodka. You know, don't do that. You got to be honest. I just try to be nice. Be nice to people. Be honest with people. You know.
Do you? I'm just off topic. Do you still bike? You're talking about biking, like.
I need to get back into it. Yeah, I live so close to here, and I'm here so much that I wind up not really getting out and bicycling. I used to always be cycling all over the place. I still have like 5 bicycles sitting in my kitchen.
Oh wow.
You know. But I enjoy walking just as much as I enjoyed biking, because I look at bicycling as like, you know, say flying a plane over a landscape is the macro, and then in a car it gets a little more micro. You see things a little closer, but you're speeding through it. Then a bicycle is great because you can traverse a long distance, but still get the minutia of your environment. But then I truly love walking, because then you're down to the cellular level. You see like the gum on the sidewalk and the graffiti and. You see everything when you walk. You really get to take it all in. So I'm a big fan of walking, but I am going to get back into biking.
You're into like a fixed gear or just all types of bike? I'm
only into track bikes. Yeah. I mean, I have like a surly long haul trucker that I ride, which is fun. It was fun for me to start coasting for once, because I hadn't coasted in like 10 years. I got into
track bikes. Are the fixed gear bikes?
Track bikes, it's called a direct drive. So the chain goes around it's like if the rear wheel and the pedals move, the bike moves.
Oh, okay.
Meaning like if you pedal backwards on it, you go backwards. You pedal forwards, you go forwards. There's no coasting.
Fixed gears,
Because I first saw somebody, my buddy Greg was on Market Street. He became my dear friend. But I saw this older man riding backwards along between the edge of the curb and a fire hydrant in a straight line. And it blew my mind, because a bicycle, you go from point A to point B. You don't go from point B to point A. It injected this like lightning bolt of art and creativity into cycling that I never knew existed. I was like, that's beautiful. And then when I saw his bike, it was like this fillet braised, made by this guy Albert Eisentraut from Oakland. So it was like a custom frame with Campagnolo components. The bike was an absolute work of art. And the fixed gear, direct drive, track bike, whatever you want to call it, it's an absolute distillation of the bicycle down to its purest form. So like the people with the motorcycles that take off the fairing and the mirrors and the speedometer and everything, it's like this reduction to pure form. Like no brakes, just a flat bar. They don't have the curved bars anymore. Kids are just putting the flat bar on it. But I never agreed with the no brakes thing. I think that's great in theory. And I tried it for about a year. It's inherently damaging to the drivetrain of the bicycle, because it's not designed to. When you have a true track bike, you have to. The only way to slow down is by backpedaling, or like either locking your legs and leaning forward, which takes the weight off the rear wheel, and you can lock up the whole drivetrain and you skid, which just puts wear marks in your tires. But it also puts a lot of torque on the chain ring, the cranks, the chain itself, the everything. So I always used a brake, like I had a front brake, and just a small brake, kind of innocuous, and a little feather lever that I like, a small, very small lever. But it's better to have a brake and not need it than need a brake and not have it. I've heard far too many accidents of people bombing hills on their track bikes, and you get past maximum terminal velocity where you can't slow down. You're just along for the ride.
The track bikes were very huge, I think, like maybe 10 years ago. Because all my friends were riding them. But then I was like...
There was a whole culture around it. It was amazing, because I would see it. I'd be like, oh my God, you love this thing like I do.
You don't think it's as...
It was super dangerous. I thought it was so...
Is it more dangerous than like regular
Oh, bike? yeah, for sure. Well, because with the track bike, it's like this kind of pirate culture. It's like with the guys that ride the track bikes, it's like no brakes, no helmet. It's like... Not necessarily a tough guy thing, but it's kind of a tough guy thing. It's like, I don't need a helmet. I don't need brakes. And it's just, but it's like, that's just dumb in a city when there's so much that can go wrong. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're just riding the roads, that's one thing. That's fine. If you're just on the flats and all that, that's cool. But when you're in a city like San Francisco, that's all hills, tons of traffic, all the street grates and the cable car tracks, which I've stacked on, it's a whole different animal. So I have mad respect for anybody. There are guys that I still follow on Instagram. They're amazing. They ride a brakeless track bike better than accomplished road cyclists. Like they're because with a track bike, you're kind of married to the bicycle. It's like you move, it moves. When you coast physically, I found that you coast mentally. When people coast physically, their brain, they start daydreaming. But on the track bike, it's like this dance partner. It requires this constant attention. You're completely locked in with your bike, with the speed, and then it's beautiful when people start doing the backwards circles and figure eights and people can ride backwards in a straight line, which that internal gyroscope they have is insane. The people that can do that, there's only a few people that can do it, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I have a couple custom track bikes. I'm so tall, I couldn't find anything off the shelf for me. So
right, that would be cool. A lot of bike messengers use those bikes, right?
Oh yeah,
So
cool. That was a big part of the bike culture.
And you also recently got into jiu-jitsu. Well, you said Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, back in May before my 53rd birthday. Okay. Yeah, I was talking to a buddy and I said, "Where you going?" He said, "Oh, jiu-jitsu." I said, "I've always wanted to try that." And I said, I said, "Yeah, I've always wanted to try that." And he said, "You should come with me and just try a class out." And I tried it 10 years ago. I went to one class and it was brutal. It was like a 45-minute warm-up. This is at the Gracie Academy down on Howard Street.
Okay.
And that was when Kurt Osiander was there. And it was like fucking brutal. It was like this 45-minute workout. I felt like I was going to puke. That was 10 years ago. So I was younger, fitter, and it destroyed me. And then they're like, "Okay, and now the class starts." I was like, "What the fuck?" So it just killed me. So I never, it was just so hard. I was like, "Fuck that." But then something changed this time. I went, and maybe it was the pandemic or whatever. I just needed to do something new and something that required discipline and something that I had to face my fears of. So I just decided to do it and not give up.
Yeah.
So instead of giving up, like I tapped out of everything in my life. I was a skateboarder for years, and I just gave up after 10 years. My knees were shot, and I broke every part of my body.
Yeah.
I was an artist, and then I just kind of somewhere along the line, I just gave up on that. I was a musician playing guitar. Somewhere along the line, I just let all these passions subside. Writer, just stopped doing it.
Right.
But this is the one thing where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to give up on this. I want to give one thing in my life. The bar industry, obviously, I devoted a lot to.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm going to commit to this, and I've been going since May. I currently haven't gone in 2 weeks. I have a shoulder injury.
Right.
So it's one of those hard calls where you want to go, but if I go, I'm just going to keep injuring it and damage. So I have to let the shoulder heal up before I can go back, because it's so much torque and strain on your tendons.
Right.
And it's just an amazing discipline. It's a gentle art. So it's not like karate, kung fu, or this where you're doing these katas where you're just like punching the air against some imaginary opponent. Here, when they go and you just grab someone and you start rolling around on the ground, you've got a 200-pound dude that's trying to bend your arm the way it shouldn't go, or your leg or your neck, or choke you out. It's amazing. And you're trying to anticipate what they're going to do, and it's extremely humbling. I'm a big dude. I don't feel like a big dude. I still feel like I'm that little kid. I still feel like I'm this little skinny thing. People are like, "Oh, dude, I was scared of you when I saw you." You're like, and I forget, I'm like 6'5", 235 pounds. I'm a big boy. And still, when I go into jiu-jitsu, none of that matters. I've had like little 110-pound dudes just choke me out. Not unconscious, but they get you to the point where you tap pretty quickly. But it's awesome. It's somebody that's not that strong, but if you have a good technique, you can overpower somebody bigger than you. And I absolutely wish I'd started this when I was a kid, because it instills so much discipline and self-respect, and you walk a little taller, you just feel better. It gets your body in shape without being in the gym where you're just lifting weights, looking off into space again. You're like absolutely focused on these moves, and you're learning a whole new language.
Right.
So it activates that part of your brain. So they say it's good for you. Like me being an older man, 53, they say learning a new language and stuff, it just helps keep your brain young. You're creating new synapses and new neural pathways, So it's like really good. But on so many levels, it's good. On a physical level, you're getting the most insane workout of your life. You're dripping sweat for like an hour and a half to 2 hours, like heart racing, pouring sweat. It's amazing. But you're learning something new. This sense of community. These straight up gangster looking dudes, like covered in tattoos, cauliflower ears, big scars, and they look like they would just destroy you. They're the nicest people on the planet. Everyone is so super helpful and supportive. And it's just badass. And I wish I'd started it years and years ago. But being older now, I'm a little bit, hobbled because my body just doesn't do what it used to do.
Sure.
But I'm still going for the black belt. It might
Nice.
take me. It takes like 10 years, so maybe I'll be 65 or whatever if and when I get there. But I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
So.
How do you move on belt? Do you have to do a competition for your?
That helps if you go to competition. It's really the people teaching at your academy, wherever you go, they're the ones that decide when you're ready. You know, with jiu-jitsu, it goes, you start as a white belt, then you get these little stripes on your belt. And I think you get 3 stripes or 4 stripes. Then you move up to the blue belt, which can take up to 3 years to go from white to blue belt. And the attrition rate is like 90+%. People that all walk into a jiu-jitsu academy, I don't know if this is true for all martial arts, but they said it's like 90% will tap out. They won't become a blue belt. They'll give up. And then a lot of blue belts
Quit after they get the blue belt.
because they've done it enough to where they got that belt. Because anyone gets a white belt. You just walk in, you're handed a white belt for free. The blue belt, you have to earn it. It takes years of struggle, sweat, learning, disappointment. You know, because not everyone. Some people, I think the fastest guy to get a black belt was BJ Penn. And I heard he did it in like 4 years or something, or 5 years. But BJ Penn had an absolute natural ability for jiu-jitsu. He was like a wrestler. He had a natural ability. He was strong, and he was training all day, every day. Which is that's how you get better. You just hit the mats. You know, I'm only going twice a week, so it's really hard to get better when you go twice a week. But the guys that go 4 or 5 times a week, they get better very quickly. And then then blue belt, then purple, then brown, and then black. Whenever I see anybody with a blue belt, I'm like, wow, you've suffered for that belt. I respect you. And that respect goes up every belt level. Black belt, I'm like, holy shit. So it's got to become like a lifestyle thing. Even black belts, they still roll a couple times a week. And it's all about not necessarily what you're learning. It's about passing on that knowledge to someone else. So, it's very humbling. And it's really, really difficult. Really difficult.
Yeah.
You don't want, sometimes I just didn't want to be there, man. I was like, I shit water like the first 5 times before I went in. I was so nervous about going in because there's all these, the rituals, you can't step on the mat and you got to bow, and there's all these things I knew nothing about. So it was completely overwhelming before I met everybody and saw how cool they all were, you know, and just the workout itself. The first day I went in, we start this workout, we're all just running around in a big circle. And I'm like, this isn't so bad. And then they're like, high knees. And you got to kick your knees up and then kick your knees in the back. And then it kept going. And then you're doing these side. The first class, I strained my Achilles tendon because my body wasn't used to working in those ways.
The knee slides are so hard, like the takedown.
All that stuff. So, and I got claustrophobic. We were in the middle of the warm up and I was like, I can't do this. And there's these big glass windows and I saw the outside world and I was like, I just wanted to run for the door. I just wanted to leave and just run away from pain, you know. But I stayed because first of all, it's really fucking embarrassing. You're not just going to walk out. You just have to stay, you know. And I'm glad I did. And I just forced myself to go back. And the feeling you get after being on the mats for just a couple hours, it's like just the best feeling in the world. Obviously, it's the dopamine, the serotonin, all that stuff gets released. And you just feel like you're on top of the world. All your stress melts away. So, I miss it. It's been like 2 weeks since I've done it. And my mental health has kind of dropped. My eating habits have gone to shit. My sleeping has gone down. Like everything suffers.
When are you going to go back? Or are you planning to go back soon?
I have an appointment with Kaiser to go get my shoulder looked at and just see what they say and see if I have to rehabilitate it or I can just jump back in. Because I was babying it for a little bit, but it was still... It was still getting worse.
Have you looked back into your other passions recently, like music or drawing or writing? Are you going to revisit?
No, unfortunately, I'm not one of those guys that can multitask like that in life. It's like the bar. This bar has become, and some people in. Okay, I'll just speak for myself. The bar has become my passion, and what I mean by that is like my passion for art and drawing and art. I curate art shows, so I find other great artists, and I get to look at other people's beautiful artwork. I get to decide color schemes of things and how flyers look and stuff of that nature. My love for music, instead of me playing it, I curate the jukebox. There's 300 CDs that we have on our jukebox that I've obsessively curated. Of course, with input from the staff, because it's a democracy here. It's not just what I want to hear. Right. Most of it isn't what I want to hear. I want to hear punk and metal and stuff, and that's an absolutely bar killer. People just walk out of the bar; they don't want to hear that shit, you know. Unless you're Duff's Bar in Brooklyn or, you know, St. Vitus and out in New York, where it's like metalhead bars, you know. But so my love for music, I get to curate the music here. This bar has become, that's it's all my passions kind of wrapped up into one. Okay. But maybe someday I'll get back into playing guitar or doing art and stuff, you know. But I don't know.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all I have. You have any last words you want to say? I know you have a heart out. It might be a little bit after 1, actually.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, just come by and check out the bar, Emperor Norton's Boozeland, 510 Larkin at Turk. I'm usually here, and I'll give you a tour of the place, and you'll see what an amazing space this is if you come check it out.
Yep.
And follow your passion.
All right. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Dorian.
All right. Take care.
Cheers.